Good evening. I'm Hello Dory. Welcome to the Tampa Native Show. If you like Tampa history, you're going to love tonight's show. So please stay tuned because the Tampa Native Show starts right now.
Otra vez. Come here. Let me tell you something. I remember Tampa, the way she used to be, the places we would run to, the faces we would see. Yes, I remember Tampa, those precious memories, a city rising on the move, a simple yet progressive groove. I remember Tampa, and she remembers me. Yeah. She remembers me.
Welcome to the Tampa Native Show. Stay tuned now for the fastest 60 minutes in cable broadcast history. Live from the studios at TBCN, the home of the Tampa Native Show. Join your hosts, Mario Nunez, the 15-Minute Girl, and Steve Canella, as they celebrate growing up in Tampa. From Shock Armstrong to Shakey's Pizza, from Braddock Street to Buffalo Avenue. Get ready to call in and tell us your stories, because sharing your memories has never been this much fun. And now, Mario Nunez, the 15-Minute Girl, and Steve Canella.
She remembers me.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Tampa Native Show, the fastest hour in cable broadcast history. I'm Steve Canella. I'm sitting alongside two very special guests tonight. To my immediate left, we have Mr. Joe Caltagirone. Now, technically, Joe is not a historian. However, he sure knows a lot about history. And now he knows it from books. Not from books, I should say, but actually from living that history. And he's going to share a lot of that history with us tonight. We also have Mr. Sam Manna. He's also, both guests tonight are also members of the Italian Club. Sam Manna is the current president of the Italian Club Cemetery. And he's going to talk a little bit tonight about its history, future renovations planned coming up. And he's going to tell us about who sold the property, the cemetery property, to the Italian Club many years ago. And as soon as you hear that name, you're gonna remember it right away. It's amazing. And but guys, thank you very much for being here tonight.
Well, Steve, thank you for having us on with you. We
really
appreciate the opportunity.
Oh, I'm so glad you're here, and more than you'll know. On this show, by the way, we're always talking about our special history, our unique culture. And tonight's show is going to be about how our local culture developed, and more interestingly, why Tampa. Because this cultural mix, or this cultural soup, if you will, it could have happened anywhere. It could have happened in Orlando, Miami, anywhere else. But it happened in Tampa, and I'm so glad it did. But but before we get started, I got a couple things I got to talk about. 4 items I want to get out of the way, and then we'll get the show rolling and move on.
Great.
Fine. Okay, is that okay? Cool. All right, here we go. I got 4 items to talk about. Number 1, we want to thank our sponsors, because without our sponsors, we wouldn't be having this discussion right now. And also to our fans, please go to the TampaNativeShow.com website, click on Visit Our Sponsors, and I think you'll be interested in knowing who is sponsoring the Tampa Native Show. By the way, the Italian Club is sponsoring the show as well, and we're so glad for that. But yeah, please do that, and I think you'll be glad you did. Number 2, the Tampa Native Show has a relationship with the University of South Florida Special Collections Library. And I just want to make a special thanks to Andy Hughes, librarian of the Special Collections. Monday night, he helped me, he actually stayed over after work for an hour and a half and helped me select some of the photos that we're going to be seeing tonight. In fact, the one right behind us here, incredible photo. So Andy, thank you very much for that, really appreciate it. Number 3, we're almost there, folks. There's a Facebook group out there called, it's All About Drew Park. And I got an email from Sharon Trussell about 2 weeks ago. She's the organizer of the Drew Park reunion. That's going to be held Saturday, September 8th. That's Saturday, September 8th from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. at Felipe Park in Safety Harbor. It's going to be at shelter number 2. They're going to have music, games, hot dogs will be provided. People are encouraged to bring their own side dishes as well. And also to bring pictures too. So if I get the time and the opportunity to go, I think I'm going to go just to meet some of the Drew Park people and see some of those photos.
Sounds like it'll be a good time.
Oh yeah, and anyone who has information or wants more information about that or wants to contact Sharon, send us an email at show@tampanatives.com, and what I'll do is I'll forward that over to her. And okay, number 4. This is the big one. This is the $60,000 question. And the question is, where is Mario? Where is the 15-minute girl? Well, they're not here, obviously, and the reason is Mario is actually on assignment tonight at the Republican National Convention. The 15-minute girl, she's helping Mario. Now, she's working out of her home-based command center tonight, so that's why they're not here. But to better explain why or what Mario is doing at the RNC, I'm going to go ahead and read an article from the paper about 2 weeks ago. It came out in the newspaper. Mario Nunez, a third-generation Tampa native, has been selected as one of 18 nationwide winners for the Huffington Post Group's Off the Bus 2012 Cover the Conventions contest. That's a mouthful, actually. Now, basically, he's a citizen journalist. He's at the RNC now. He's walking around with a microphone in his hand. He's interviewing dignitaries, delegates, and knowing Mario, he's interviewing everybody. Now, I can't think of anything more natural than Mario walking around with a microphone in his hand. It's right up his alley. It's a great opportunity for him, and we're all very proud. So we may even hear from him tonight. So he may be one of our callers.
Perfect.
Hoping so. Okay, now having a little technical difficulty here, so we're going to go ahead and play the video that I had planned for a little bit later in the show. So I'm not even going to set it up. Let's go ahead and play it right now. Okay, now as we're, our technical staff is still working out that problem we're having right now. We'll have it resolved shortly. It's a microphone that's gone bad. That's what we're working on. I was going to set up the video before it started, but I'll go ahead and talk about it after the fact. That video was my family. Actually, it was the Cutro family and the Canellos. The two gentlemen in the photo were both of my uncles. It was probably taken about 1950, 1951. Of course, the automobiles in the background, they looked awesome, but they were probably 1945 model cars. My grandmother, all her sisters, she had 4 sisters, 2 brothers. They were in the video, and their mother, which is my great-grandmother. Her name was Antonina Cutro. Now, she was the lady that was the thin lady with the round glasses, and she had the little white hat pin in her hair and her hat. She was actually born in Sicily, 1875, passed away in 1955. She's currently at rest at the Italian Club Cemetery. But incredible photos or video. I got that recently from my uncle who passed away, and he had it on 8mm film. I've got about an hour worth of video. I just cut that little minute and a half out. But should be getting word here soon from our technical director as to, oh, okay. And I think we have it resolved now, the technical issue. But what I wanted to say, guys, was let's let all the fans know how this whole thing started about you being here. We met last Saturday at Amarilli's, one of our favorite places. Met Sam, Joe, Joe's lovely wife Dora, and myself, and we sat there and had some cafe con leche and breakfast to talk about the show tonight. And Joe, I think Joe Caltagirone, he got maybe one sip into his cafe con leche, and he broke into a big story about the Spanish occupation of Sicily. And from there, he went on to some other stories. But so, what do you think, guys? We just pick up where we left off at Amarilli's.
I'll be fine.
Okay.
I love to do that. You know, I think. Well, we should, the fact that the Ybor City and West Ham population was so many Spanish and Sicilians, and Cubans. But how did this all started? It wasn't just an accident. It all started all the way back to 1282.
Wow.
If you can picture this, Sicily, 1282.
AD, not BC, right?
AD. And Palermo. And it was an Easter Monday celebration in Palermo, and the Church of Spirito Santo, which incidentally is still there in Palermo. It was during the occupation of the French that the French were really mistreating the Sicilians, something awful. And one particular soldier, a French soldier, I can't remember his name, got a little bit too frisky with one of the ladies at the church.
That could be a problem.
Quite a problem. She was a newlywed, and of course, her husband took action. He drew out his knife and killed the soldier. And when the French soldiers tried to assist him, his fellow soldiers, they killed him.
Oh, wow.
And then Sicily, Palermo went berserk. They just started running through the streets, killing all the French throughout Sicily. They had runners going from one village to the other. I hate to tell a gruesome story like that, but they pushed all the French out. But the Pedro III of Aragon was married to Constant, who was the granddaughter of Frederick II, who was the king of Sicily, whose father, Manfred, became king, but the French killed him in a battle, in which they took him to prison, killed him, and they made enemies. The French made enemies of all of Europe. They wasn't supposed to do a thing like that. But anyway, so when no one in command of Sicily, they really felt that Constant, the granddaughter of Frederick II, was entitled to be the queen of Sicily. So Frederick II of Aragon, Pedro rather, of Aragon, became king of Sicily. Now that was 1812. What I'm trying to say is the Spanish were influence of Spain was all the way to 1860.
Wow.
572 years that the Spanish influence was in Sicily.
That's a long time.
So then Garibaldi came along and the unification of Italy and drove all the Bourbons out. But the strange thing about the whole thing, then of course Garibaldi, the unification of Italy was a bittersweet. It was a good thing, but from Rome down, it turned out to be a disaster. And what had happened, the king kind of ignored the South, and Garibaldi was no longer needed, the king. And so all the plans that Garibaldi had for Sicily, schools, roads, and went down the drain. So that's when about 20 years later, 1880, the Sicilian says, what's going on? We were better off when the Bourbons were here. So that's when the great migration of Italians from Rome south, the biggest majority, to the tune of from 1880 to 1915, 5 million Italians left Italy to migrate largely in the United States. I thought I'd let you know that all these Italians that came to the United States, and lo and behold, let's see, 20 years, 25 years later, the Spanish and the Sicilians start trickling back into Ybor City in West Tampa.
Ah, okay,
So-
interesting. And you mentioned the other day they kind of reunited.
Well, yes,
Basically.
it's like I said, they were separated for all these years, 20 years. Well, from 1860 to 1885. What's that?
And Joe, if I'm not mistaken, I think the original members of the Italian Club back in, I don't know, I'm sure when it started, 1894, I believe. I think some of the original members were Spaniards. I think there was 9.
Oh yeah,
right?
well, what happened was it was a Spaniard, I can't remember his name also, owned a cigar factory, one of the first cigar factories in Ybor City. His bookkeeper was Italian, and the Spaniard had just formed the Centro Español. And he told his bookkeeper, who was Italian, he says, you know what, the Italians, you should form an Italian club. And the 8 Spaniards got together, were 8 Spaniards that told the Italians how to put the paperwork together, and they formed the Italian Club. So there were 8 Spaniards, a chartered member of the Italian Club, who got the Italian Club started. That's a little bit of information.
Well, Joe, also, you mentioned, with the immigration, and we mentioned early on at the beginning of the show, why Tampa? Now, a lot of people think it was just the cigars only, right? But it was dairy, it was...
That's a story in itself also.
No, showing itself, really.
Yeah, about in 1880, 20 years after the unification of Italy, these 4 teenagers from Santo Stefano, there were the Cacciatori brothers and Deme and De Bona, and they were teenagers, and they decided to leave and start a new life in America. And so these teenagers walked 2 days to Palermo, took a boat to Naples, and then a steamer, which took, at that time, 4 weeks to get to New York. And then in New York, they had an aid society of all nationalities. And of course, the 4 Italians went to the Italian Aid Society, and they had a list of all the jobs throughout the United States.
Right.
So they asked these 4 young men, what's your occupation? They said they were farmers. Says, where are you from? They said, Sicily. Says, I've got just the place for you. Just like Sicily. The sun shines all the time. You'll love it. It's called St. Cloud, Florida.
So it wasn't Tampa?
No, it was St. Cloud. St. Cloud is right next to Kissimmee, Florida. Disney World, that area. There was a huge, huge sugar plantation. And they were sent to St. Cloud as laborers, migrant laborers cutting sugar cane at 75 cents a day from sun up to sundown.
In the hot sun.
In the hot sun.
Tough way to make a living.
Oh, yeah. Tell me about it.
So it took about $30 to get over from Sicily to New York, and then another $20 by train to Central Florida. That was the only train line that was to Kissimmee due to the fact of the large sugar plantation. So when they started working there, 75 cents a day, right away they wrote home telling everyone they had jobs in America. And this trickle of 4 young men turned into a flood.
Wow, this is before email and Google.
Right. So and they worked their way over, and my grandfather was one of the young teenagers that came over. And then they found out that there was jobs in the Tampa area because of the cigar factories being started in Ybor City. And so my grandfather and his friends, they followed a wagon trail all the way to Tampa. Once they got here, they got a job on the railroad for $1 a day. And not only did they walk all the way from St. Cloud, but then they found out they had to build a railroad in the opposite direction, which they did. And
I tell you what, if I had a choice, I would rather roll cigars than cut sugar cane myself. So I don't blame them.
Well, then they started in the cigar factory, of course. But as I remember as a young boy, every strip of land, say from Adamo Drive was not there. That was First Avenue, but no street. From Adamo Drive as far south as you could look, all you could see was greenery of all the Italian immigrants that had farms in that area. It was a beautiful sight.
I don't know how they did it. I don't know how they endured coming from a strange land, couldn't speak the language, they get here, they're faced with all kind of creatures and alligators, things they didn't see in Sicily, and started businesses, as we saw. And I think there was a sense of pride that they had as well, but because of accomplishing all that.
No question. They had, it's a testament to their desire to persevere. I mean, the immigrants that came and the struggles that they went through to make a life here, it's astounding. And we all benefit, you, myself, Joe, you know,
Well,
all of us here in town benefit from those struggles and what they achieved.
so true, Sam. And in fact,
Well,
yeah.
Yeah,
Go
well,
ahead,
the
Joe.
strange thing about it is that there were less than 100 that grouped together. There were less than 100 saying, you know, we have to take care of each other. And with the help of the gentleman, the Spanish gentleman that started the Italian Club, they started their own HMO as we know it today.
Its own mutual aid
Mutual
society.
Aid Society.
Right.
In fact, it was better than today's mutual aid HMO rather.
Better price, too.
Better because it was from
Yeah.
birth. Well, it was from birth,
Right.
and then you had a plot in a cemetery.
That's what. Yeah.
And it all started out with 25 cents a week would cover the whole family. Now,
Yeah,
we're
I'm
talking about
Can't imagine that.
1894. It wasn't yesterday. And those days, if you had to see a doctor, and the club would pay for the doctor, and it was 25 cents per patient.
Good grief.
So
Yep.
times have changed. But
Drastically.
there's so much I left out. I mean, the history of Sicily and the immigration, you would take a volume, not a book, but a volume.
But you know,
yeah.
Joe, you can talk a little bit too about that's such a benefit that the immigrants had by having these clubs that were spawned,
That's
you know,
true.
from need, you know, and looking out for each other. So you had, you know, the Centro Español and the Centro Asturiano, the, you know, the Italian Club itself, you know, those things developed, and those people that came that were immigrants, they benefited, you know, from that.
Excellent point.
Right.
Excellent point. In
Oh,
fact, it
yeah,
probably made the
it's,
people coming from Sicily that, you know, feel more comfortable even making the trip, taking
Absolutely.
that risk. Saying, at least I have someone to go to, a go-to organization
Right.
that's going to help me out.
What was really great, though, is how they did all this on their own with no handout.
That's
They
true.
did all on their own. They all pulled their own. They built a beautiful building, the Italian Club on 7th Avenue, across the street from the existing.
From what people know now, the building
Yeah,
that's there now, this was across the
Across
street.
And that was in 1912. In 1915, it burnt down. But they bought bonds, members, they bought bonds, and the building only cost $40,000.
Wow.
A beautiful building. Then when they built across the street, they only paid $80,000 for that building. Today, $80,000 would cover all the permits.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Is that where the Broadway Theater was?
Yes, Broadway
Okay.
Theater.
It was the
yes.
same building, right?
It was a 3-story building, cantina, the theater, and the ballroom. And then next door was the clinic, the building next door.
Oh, we've got to talk about that clinic, the story you mentioned the other day. But real quick, I want to just make a quick announcement here. But anyone who'd like to call the show right now, feel free to give us a call, 977-6800, if you have any questions for Joe or Sam. And talk about any stories you may have with your relatives, maybe immigrating to Tampa back in the day.
Right.
And that was, but yeah, let's go back to what you were saying about the about your story.
Well, you got to understand, put yourself, like, being an immigrant coming to this country was like jumping into a pool of water. You can't swim, and you don't know how deep it is.
That's a good analogy.
That was about, and they, can you imagine, a lot of them left home never to see their family again, ever. But there were so many at one time at the beginning, by 1900, that all these Sicilians, their purpose was to come to this country, work, get enough money, go back and buy land. I mean, all the Sicilians thought that way, that they were going to go back someday. Well, so all these professors and teachers, all the teachers, they called them professori, professors, would tell the Sicilians, now look, when you go back to Italy, It's another world. You have to learn Italian. Italian is the language. Now the unification of Italy, Italian is the language. So they had 5 private Italian schools in Ybor City. And my daddy was in one of the classes, my uncles. So what happened? My dad goes all the way through school, gets a great education in Italian, and then his dad tells him, we're not going back. And my uncle, even my brother-in-law was a 3rd grader, and his dad told him, we're not going back. And he became a teacher, couldn't speak a word of English
How about
in the
that?
3rd grade.
Wow.
But
It's like, hey, I like it here. I'm staying.
But they
started to make a life for themselves.
Exactly.
That's
Yeah.
right.
And they had the support mechanism in place already, too.
But
That's right.
As the wives would, mothers and wives would come into Tampa, as one friend of mine, the elderly gentleman, told me, that he was a teenager, and he and his mother just cried and cried, asking the father, why did you ever bring us to this unforgotten, this terrible place? Mosquitoes, alligators, and
high humidity.
yeah, my mother told me the story that 7th Avenue was not paved, wooden sidewalk. And when they did pave 7th Avenue, it was the railroad ties. They would cut every 6 inches and then lay them over and pave the street out of wood.
Wow, that's
I hadn't heard that story. That's
Yeah.
interesting.
that's tough.
I have a picture of on the side of the road. They had these wooden blocks stacked.
You know, Joe, what we'll do for a second here, and we're going to go kind of bounce around a little bit. We're going to go back to the history and then a little bit
sure.
to the current. But let's fast forward just a moment here. And Sam, if you can, maybe just talk a little bit about your position with the Italian Club as president of the cemetery committee.
Sure. Thank you, Steve.
Sure.
Yeah, it was a few years back, I became very active with the Italian Club, and in particular, I got involved with the Italian Club Cemetery, and it's just loaded with history. And of course, there's many people who did a lot of the heavy lifting before I got involved with the cemetery committee. But the history there starts from well over 100 years ago, and the group that started the Italian Club and wanted to have a facility for themselves to be buried at.
Right.
And like, Joe, what is it that you always say? They were afraid to be buried alone in a foreign country.
They didn't want to be buried among strangers.
There you go. So they didn't want to be buried among strangers. So then they decided to start their cemetery. And what they did was they found a plot of land, and Joe, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but they purchased this property from the Armwood family, which is a very prominent black family from the area. And in fact, there are still the Armwood family is still buried there. There is still current burials that take place there from the Armwood family, as well as, those members and the public that decide that they want to purchase within the Italian Club Cemetery property, because we're running out of ground spots, but we have the mausoleum and we have crypts that are available. So it's still an active cemetery.
That's
But it's a true history of how the people came to this country, and then they started something, and they developed a club, and then they developed their own clinics, and now they have their own, they developed their own cemetery for laying themselves to rest, or for their family to lay them to rest.
So true. In fact, well, my great-grandmother in that video, it was a perfect example. She came here in 1875.
Sure.
Went through the Italian Club.
That's right.
Lived in Ybor City, and then now she lays to rest in that cemetery. And by the way, that cemetery is not government owned, right? It's not managed it's strictly the Italian Club.
Right. It's strictly the Italian Club. It's privately funded. It's privately maintained. And it takes quite a bit of money to keep it up. So consequently, what we do is we have several fundraisers throughout the year, and then the club helps us immensely. But it couldn't be done without volunteers, and it couldn't be done without people that participate in these fundraisers. And
like Picnic and the
we have an event that's called Picnic with the Past, and it's
I want to
held
do that one day.
It's held at the cemetery, and it's always held in November. And it's a wonderful event, and I always like to share this story, and that is in fact that it was about 6 years ago that's what got me involved.
Really?
As active as I am with the club. I was invited to come to that event. So my family and I, we decided to go to the event, and of course my grandparents are buried there. and so I was so taken by the event, the cemetery itself, and how the
care.
grounds were being maintained. And I said, well, if I get involved with the club, this is the part that I'm going to be involved with. And so that's how I got involved with it, and that's why I'm in the position I am now.
So you've been the president for quite a while now, then.
I've been the president of the cemetery group for 4 years.
Okay, good.
Going on 4 years.
Well, I'm going to go to the next
I'll take-
picnic with a pass this November. So
Right.
Well, taking off from what Sam was talking about, the cemetery was purchased in 1900. And we have a complete inventory of everyone's buried there. And that's
it's like a historical archive that you maintain at the
Yes.
Italian Club, correct?
right. And
Okay.
there's a neighborhood of 4,000.
4,000. Wow.
Yeah, like I was the other day, I was looking through it and I ran across the name Leto, which is a common name. I started counting. There's 75 Letos buried there.
Wow.
And then you see names after name. It's about a half-inch thick booklet we have with 4,000 names.
I didn't know it was that big. incredible.
Well, it's about 6 acres.
Yeah,
And,
it's a little,
I didn't realize that
6
either.
plus acres.
yes, 6
and-
plus.
right.
And I think it adjoins the Centro
Español.
Español cemetery
Right.
as well.
Yes.
That's correct.
Hey guys, we got a call. Let's go ahead and take it.
Let's take that call.
Okay.
Caller, you're on the air. Tell us your name and where you're calling from.
Hey man, is this the Tampa Native Show?
This sounds like Mario.
No, after that Dory lady, I thought she was answering the phone.
So Mario, tell us about your assignment at the Republican National Convention. Are you still maintaining your sanity?
Yes, not only am I maintaining my sanity, Stevie, and hello Joe and hello Sam. I see you guys there.
Hi, how are you?
Hey, Mario.
Good to see you guys again.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, it's been quite an experience. I tell you what, Tampa has been on virtual lockdown since this thing began on Monday. It's incredibly difficult to navigate the streets down here, and for journalists and delegates and anybody who's attending this event, you've really got to be in shape, and you've got to be able to get from venue to venue, and it's quite a bit of walking. And in the heat and the humidity, it's been a challenge. It has been a challenge, but tonight's the big night. Been sitting through a lot of speeches and you know, taking notes and chronicling a lot of the good stuff that's going on. Done some assignments out in the field as well. It's been a heck of an experience, Steve. I tell you what, I feel very fortunate to have been selected, and it's given me quite a first-hand view at what these journalists do. They incredibly long hours. They start early in the morning, and they don't get out of here sometimes until 12, 1 o'clock. They've got deadlines that they've got to file their stories. And for the week, at least, I'm doing the same thing.
It's
pretty
hard
cool.
work. Well, that's incredible, Mario. I mean, I drove through there the other night. Had to pick him up and drop him off at a different location. And I tell you what, I was shocked at the just the lockdown of security.
Wow, yeah, imagine.
And in fact, I kind of blew my horn at someone at the corner because they cut me off. And then when I looked forward, there was like 50 police officers staring at me, and I said, "Oh no, what have I done?" I'm laying on my horn right in front of them. But Mario, have you met anybody that we know? Any famous people?
Well, you see them. The problem is you don't have a lot of access to them. I mean, the most famous person that, I guess you could say famous, the person that I've come in contact with, I did have a chance yesterday to interview Ariana Huffington Post, and we saw her this morning at breakfast. She's very gracious. She's set up a place here in the inside of the Club Asia, across the street from the Forum, where journalists can come in and decompress and sort of unplug and get away from the stress of having to cover this event. You can get a massage, you can get a facial, they have organic meals prepared. It's just kind of a place where you can get away, and aptly called the Oasis.
You almost need that, for sure.
So she's the one that's running it, and as a result, she's there a lot of times. So we saw her this morning. I have seen a lot of politicians, obviously, delegates galore, but you got to understand, Steve, this thing is on lockdown. So, and by that I mean the police presence here is there's probably 3 law enforcement officers for every potential protester, for everybody who's in a parade, everybody who's got a sign, and it's for me it's a little bit much, but I understand that you have to be in a position of being safe and sorry. We've got half of the country's political leaders here. and you really can't take any chances. We've seen more motorcades, more black vans with those tinted windows and Virginia tags than at any other time in my life. I've never seen anything like this, outside of Washington, D.C. So, but I don't want to take away. I just wanted to call in and wish you guys good luck and have a great rest of the show. And you guys who are watching out there, call in, man, and ask a tough question of Joe or Sam. They got all the answers. I want to hear more about that cemetery and include me in the plans to go to that event this November. And Sam, we'll come see you one of these Friday nights. Me and Stevie will come out there and come see you guys at the Italian Club.
That'd be great.
Yep.
That'd be great, Mario. Thank you.
Thanks, Mario.
Take
You're
care,
welcome.
Mario.
You guys have a great show, and Stevie doing a great job.
All right, thank you. Enjoy
Thank
yourself.
you.
Thank you, brother.
Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.
Well, that was interesting. It was a great graphic he's going to see when he watches the replay Tuesday night that
Right.
Eric made for him. But yeah, so let's go back to where we were. Now, go ahead, Joe.
Well, you hadn't mentioned Drew Field.
Or Drew Park.
Drew
But
Park,
since-
right, yeah.
Yeah.
I got to tell you about that. The year was about 1933, and my dad, we had to pick up my uncle who started out as a mechanic helper, $3 a week, turned out to be vice president of an overhaul station, Eastern Airline in Miami, from Ybor City, a fifth grader. But anyway, when we would go there, all there was at the field was one corrugated hangar. It was about 200 feet by 300 feet, and inside the corner of the hangar was a homemade counter about 6 feet. That was the ticket office.
Oh, really?
Yes, that was the ticket office, 1933.
Wow.
And out
Tampa was really small back then.
there was no runway, just all grass, Muhammad grass. And the control tower was a 6-foot red silk sock, which way the wind was blowing.
Oh, I'll be darned.
And what a big change. Every time I go to the airport now, it blows my mind. But that particular hangar, the WPA moved it to Peterbilt Knight. And that's the last I saw
So
of
you
the
got some
hangar.
great memories. In fact, hey, tell us what you're
Well, you got to remember my age.
Well, how old are you?
86. So
86?
yeah, so.
But he remembers all the details, which is phenomenal, and he is such an asset to the club.
Oh, I'm sure he
itself.
is. I'm
He
sure he
really
is.
is. And every Friday evening over at the club, we down in the cantina, there's a dinner offered, and it's nominal charge, but everyone is welcome, and it's a good time. And Joe will regale us with the stories that he has from time to time. And it is just entertainment at its best.
That's you can't find that entertainment
That's
anywhere
right.
in that history knowledge.
Well, there's some stories I can't tell you.
Well, maybe
But you
maybe
can
on
go
Friday
there on
night.
a Friday night and you can have dinner and a show. So
I've been going to those socials. I've been enjoying them.
Yes,
too.
they're
fun.
a great time.
They're also fun. We'll talk a little bit more about some of the other events that you
Sure.
have a little bit
But,
later as well.
I know this big thing to do about Cuban sandwich.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, when
About your entertainment as a kid, right?
I was a kid,
right.
kids today watch television for entertainment. But I used to stand on 17th Street and 7th Avenue. My dad had a grocery store next to the La Meca Cafe. And there was a gentleman at the window there, facing the street, facing 7th Avenue. And he would just make sandwiches all day long. And to me, it was amusing to me to watch him make sandwich. And they had a little hole in the glass, about 5 inches in diameter, with the little swivel door. This way you could buy your Cuban sandwich from the sidewalk without going into the restaurant.
Interesting.
But I watched him, how he would cut the Cuban bread, but he had a big sugar cure ham in front of him with the bone, and he would slice the ham off of this smoked ham, but first he had a big jug of mustard and a wooden paddle, a miniature paddle, and he would stick it in that jar and
Just slap it on
slap it on there real thick, and then he would cut the ham, and then he had a plate with pork pre-sliced, and
With a mojo?
pardon?
The mojo flavoring?
No,
Okay.
just he would put the pork and the ham and Genoese salami, the small 2-inch diameter salami, and then he would also put Swiss cheese. I remember that real well, the cheese with the hole in it as a kid. Put Swiss cheese. And then he had a big jar filled with pickles. And he would stick his hand in there, no gloves or anything, stick his hand in there. And then he would cut the pickle elongated. He would elongate, and it had long slices. And then he would slap the sandwich together, and he would cut it, and then wrap it, and then I remember toothpick on each side.
Joe, that's the most vivid description I've ever heard of making a Cuban sandwich. In fact, I'm starving right now. I'm hungry. I'm salivating.
But those days, as I remember, you had two kind of Cuban bread. You had what was called a sandwich bread. It was narrow, and you had table bread, very wide.
That's another show we could do, just on how to make a Cuban sandwich.
True.
There you go.
Hey, we got another call.
Oh,
and
perfect.
just like all shows, they fly by. We're already at 20 minutes till 8. I can't believe it. Let's take this call real quick, though. Caller, you're on the air. Tell us your name and where you're calling from. And caller, turn down your TV set a little bit because we're hearing a little bit of an echo there, okay? And just talk on the phone.
Hello.
Hello. Caller, tell us your name and where you're calling from.
Stephanie Hanna,
Hey, Stephanie Hanna.
Tampa.
Yes, hi. Were you calling the Tampa Native Show? Did you have a particular question or?
Yes, sir. This is for Sam Manna.
Okay.
What is your favorite event and why?
Well, my favorite event. Every year towards the end of the summertime, we have what we call a casino night event, which is a fundraiser, in particular for the cemetery. And so what we do is we have the event at the Italian Club. The ticket price to get into the casino event offers dinner in the cantina, and then the gaming upstairs. And it just turns out to be a great event. There's a couple hundred people show up. Everybody's enjoying themselves. There's the food, the cash bar, friends and family getting together, and it's all for the fundraising for the cemetery. So that is my favorite event.
Stephanie, that's a wonderful question.
Thank you.
I actually have one more.
Go right ahead.
What new events do you probably have planned for the future?
Well, new
Good
events.
question.
That's a great question.
Face that.
Well, we always have the Italian Club itself puts on the Festa Italiana, and that always takes place close to Easter time.
It's a blast.
Yeah, it is a blast, and that's thousands of people come. There are no current new events that I'm aware of that that are going to be going on, but certainly we can put some things into plan and see if we can't come up and generate some ideas that would generate more interest and make something else, another event to happen.
That's true too. And also, Stephanie, you can find some events probably on the Italian Club website, and you can get there by going to our website, tampanativeshow.com.
Steve, great point.
Yeah,
that's great.
Visit our sponsors, and then from there you can click on the Italian Club picture, and it'll take you right to their website.
Thank you for that helpful tip.
Oh, you're very welcome. Stephanie, by the way, quick question. Now, what we do on the show here, and you're the first person that that called that other than Mario, but he doesn't count because he's on the show typically. We do a drawing at the end of each show. It's called a Bolita drawing, 1 through 75. If you pick a number from 1 to 75, we're going to draw, and we got a couple prizes from the Italian Club to give away. You just may be a winner tonight. So, do you have a number to give us?
11.
11. Okay. Well, I sound like you had that planned already. Okay, Stephanie. Hannah. Okay, 2 N's. Well, Stephanie, thank you so much for calling. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Oh, by the way, if you happen to win, we're going to have to find out a way to get a hold of you. So you have, okay, we got your number, so we'll contact you if you win. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye now. We got another call.
Great.
Sounds good.
Caller, you're on the air. Tell us your name and where you're calling from.
It's Tom from New York.
Hey, Tom from New York. He's our Northeast correspondent.
Wonderful.
Yeah, he lives in New York, and he works in New York, and he's only been to Tampa one time, but he loves the show. Good. Tom, how are you?
Oh, I'm just great, Steve. How you doing, Joe and Sam?
Fine.
Thank you, Tom, for calling.
Great. I've been watching, and Joe, of course, your heritage is important to what happened to Tampa. Coming at the 1282 from Sicily, the Spanish and the Italians migrated to Tampa. How was it when you first? What was the relationship between the Spanish and the Italians when you were migrating at that time?
Well, up to 1860, it was the Spanish and the Sicilians got along real good. They had a saying about same race, same face, which also with the Greek, they also said same face, same race. So the relation between the Spanish and the Sicilians was, they had been there so long, and there were so many mix between Sicilians and Spanish, but after the unification, all of that went down the drain until 1885, when they all started coming to Tampa. But it's a very long history to talk about. You know, when you go to Palermo, say the huge cathedral, the beautiful cathedral in Palermo, and you go down in the basement, and you see all the burial names, and they're all Spanish. Every one of them are Spanish.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
And
But I think too, Tom, is here in Tampa, and with the Spanish and the Italians and the Cubans at the time, and I think more in the time frame that Tom might be alluding to, is they all worked together because they would work side by side in the cigar factories. Isn't that right, Joe?
yeah, in their marriage too.
Yeah, so that's right. So in the end, I think that ultimately they all got along well here because they were trying to make their way in this country.
Right.
So they may have had different cultures primarily, but ultimately, you know, they knew that they needed each other to exist here and make a way. And then, you know, as the families grew up here and whatnot, the children were going to school and doing better, and you know, and finding profession jobs and things of that nature.
Excellent point.
But that's a whole different story. But, but ultimately, I think that Tom's question, to succinctly put it, is that they all got along fairly well.
The only hostility you had was at the turn of the century was between the Spanish and the Cuban due to the fact of the War of Independence. They didn't get along too well because of the occupation of Spanish in Cuba. But that throughout the years, that died out also.
Tom, great question, by the way. Thank you.
It's great. My wife is a Italian descendant to New York.
Ah, okay. Well, a lot of our ancestors stopped in New York first at Ellis Island.
It's a very different story.
Oh, yeah.
In the New York area, and it is just interesting how the migrations to different areas can take different tolls on just because of the environment and the people that are involved, and that is a great history story.
You're so right. You're so right about that. Tom, by the way, can we get your belated number? Should I say it's going to be 42 again, or?
Well, go ahead. Throw 42 out there, Steve.
Okay. I know that's your favorite number, so okay, we're going to put Tom. Tom is the luckiest person in the world.
I just want to say a shout out to Mario and Sally. Good luck and break a leg.
Okay. All right, they'll get the message for sure. Thank you, Tom.
All right.
Always good to hear your call.
Okay.
All right, take care. Bye-bye. We have one more caller.
Great.
Let's just take it real quick. Look how fast the show's going. Caller, you're on the air. Tell us your name and where you're calling from.
Well, hello, Steve. This is the 15-minute girl.
Hey, 15-minute girl.
We're a little past the 15-minute marker right now.
Well, you're the 10-minute girl for now.
It's a great show.
Well, thanks for calling in, by the way.
Oh, sure. My favorite was the part about Drew Park. That was very humble beginnings.
Oh, wasn't it? Good story by Joe.
And talking a little bit about all those great pictures behind you.
About what?
The good ones tonight.
Oh, you broke up a little bit. Can you repeat that last
I
sentence?
didn't quite
No,
make
I
it out.
said you guys should talk about the pictures behind you that they're showing because there's some really good pictures that I've never seen before.
Oh, I know. These are, and thanks to the USF Library, these are incredible photos.
Yeah,
And-
they are really cool.
but you know how it is with the show. It just goes so fast, and there's so many.
Zip.
It's a delicate balance between stories and pictures.
That's
It really is.
That's the Italian Club.
We'll have to have another show just on the pictures.
Okay, here's the number.
What's that, Sally? 15-minute girl, I should say.
My Belita number is 12.
Hey, are you qualified? Okay.
I'm going to be qualified tonight, but
Okay.
don't tell anybody.
Okay. We won't tell Mario.
Oh, Steve.
I didn't ask him for a number, so. Hey,
We miss you.
yeah.
Well, I'll be back soon. Thanks for being on the show, gentlemen. It's a wonderful story.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thanks for helping out in the command center,
Okay, Steve.
home base. So thank you, 15-minute girl.
Okay, hon.
All right, bye-bye now.
Bye.
Well, there you have it. We have
Okay.
we have
How
calls
about
every
that?
week. Yeah.
Yeah. It's something I failed to tell you about Drew Field. The year is 1944, and I was stationed in Vero Beach, and every chance I could hitchhike over to Tampa with one of the Navy planes, dive bomber, the pilots were very nice to me because I was a parachute rigger. They treated me with great respect. But anyway, they would fly me over to Tampa, and we would land at Drew Field. And as we would taxi in, my pilot would always throw up his wings. Navy, it's a Navy plane, so you fold your wings above your head, upward, in a pyramid style. And I can remember getting out of the plane and this elderly lady coming up to me. She says, "Is your plane broken?"
Oh no.
But it was a real thrill to come as often as I could into Drew Field. At that time, there were more soldiers on Drew Field than there were civilians in the city of Tampa city limits. It was a huge base.
That's a whole other story in itself.
That's right.
Yes.
Joe, you know we have less than 6 minutes, about 5 minutes left in the show.
Sure.
How fast can you tell that cow story? Can you do that in a
Well,
minute or
no,
two? Or
no,
did
not
you have something to say?
Well, I did want to talk a little bit about the club with only
Let's
5
let's
minutes
do that.
being
We
left.
should do
Yeah,
that.
we
You
should
know,
do that.
is that
Too long.
the club is still very active. We've got over 600 members. If there are people in the audience out there that are watching and they feel that they want to get involved with something like this, come down to the club, make application. There's all kinds of events that you can get involved with. There's different kind of subcommittees to get involved with. Maybe not in particular with the cemetery group, but there's the Crew of Italia that takes place and participates in the parades. There's the Ladies Auxiliary for that they put on different events that benefit the club. So then the building also has spaces that they can rent for parties and things of that event, of that nature. So if you're looking for a venue to have a party or a business meeting or some kind of a wedding reception or things of that nature, the club makes an ideal spot for that. The third floor level of the Italian Club is just fantastic, and it's
Beautiful building.
decorated very well. So I wanted to make sure that I put that in, that for those that are out there and you have an event coming up, give that some consideration.
That's a great
And
venue.
then there's a lot of different things involved with the club that doesn't have to be cemetery or just designed for being with Italian heritage.
Right,
The Crew
right.
of Italia does things with the parade, just to reiterate that everybody can get involved with and have a good time.
I tell you, it's a very active organization.
It is.
Very active. In fact, the third Wednesday of the month. I've been going to those as well.
Oh, yes.
And that is fantastic. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, that's a social. Right now it's for men, and it's kind of like a networking kind of an event.
Right.
And so the third Wednesday of every month from like about 6 until about 8:30, 9 o'clock, you can come. There's
Dinner.
There's dinner, heavy hors d'oeuvres. You can have a beer or two and mingle with the crowd there and socialize and network.
Right in the cantina.
Right in the cantina there at the club on 7th Avenue. So there's a lot of things happening at the club.
Well, that's I've been going and I've been enjoying it. I just joined
Wonderful.
the club in December, and I'm so glad I
Yes.
did. And of course, I want to give some kudos out to Sal Guayardo and Joe Capitano as well, I'm sure.
Well, there's so many people. Yes, of course, Sal Guayardo and Joe Capitano. This gentleman right here and his brother Philip, Joe Caltagirone and Philip Caltagirone deserve a lot of credit, but there's so many. You know, on the cemetery side, you've got Joe and Connie Sedita and Grace Campisi, and I mean, you can just go on and on. But there's, you know, a lot of...
lot going on.
Lot
going on there. I
going
tell you, it's. Hey, I got to mention something real quick too.
Go ahead.
Being the sole host tonight, I left the Bolita bag 20 feet away from me right now, and I'm all wired in. I can't get up and get it. So what we'll do is what you provided, by the way, was a Italian club bag.
Yes.
A coffee mug, the Luna Italiana.
Right.
And if you can, Sam, show what you have there as well.
Right. There's
on your
this
side.
ball cap that's
Ball
here
cap.
on the table, and then this is really a nice and unique item. It's a tile, but laminated onto the top of it is a picture of the Italian Club Cantina, circa 1920. And the picture is very, very clear, and I think that it would make a great gift for anyone.
Well, what we'll do here, since it's my mistake and I forgot the Bolita ball's over here, so what we'll do is I'll split it up a little bit, and I'll give Stephanie Hanna, who called in earlier, we'll send her some, a couple of these items, and Tom from New York.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, so
we'll just split it up.
They both win. So
Right.
we don't have a winner and a loser. We have two winners tonight. So
Perfect.
based on my mistake. By the way, I can't believe it. 30 seconds left.
Wow.
And
went by fast.
So glad you guys were here tonight. And what we'll do here shortly, do you have any last thing you want to say in the next 15 seconds, 20 seconds?
Just thank you for having us. Appreciate it. And thank you for becoming a member.
Oh, no, it's my pleasure. I'm so excited about that. I wish I should have joined, a long time ago.
Well,
really.
but you're there now.
I'm there now. That's the
The
main
hour
thing.
went by too fast.
Well, I'll tell you, it flies by every week.
Right.
What we'll do, okay, we have 20 seconds still. That's like an eternity on this show,
Okay.
But just, if you can, be sure to go to the website, tampanativeshow.com. The comment line is 920-2508, 920-2508. We have 10 seconds left. Let's do this, gentlemen. We always end the show with a salute and happy days from the old Valencia
From
Garden.
the old days.
So,
Wow.
Here we go.
I'm Steve Canello. On behalf of my guests, Sam Manna, Joe Caltagirone, say salute,
Salute.
and happy
And
days.
happy days.
Oh, we missed it a little bit. So.
Okay.
Back when we were younger and everything seemed new, we used to have a lot of fun, yes we did, no matter what we do. Sleepy days, long summer nights, going anywhere we please, with love that I could call my own, love that I've always known, the city that I call my home, a home from which I never roam. This love affair was meant to be. I love her and she loves me. I remember Tampa, oh, she remembers me. She remembers me. I remember, yeah, yes I do. Oh, I remember, yeah, me and you. I'm a Tampa native, Tampa native, can't you see? I will share my story with you to preserve its history.
All right now, don't forget, Thursdays, 7 p.m. on TBCN, home of the Tampa Native Show.